Avinu Malkeinu Aneinu Vaneinu Avinu Malkeinu Aneinu Vaneinu Ki Ein Banu Masi Masei Manu Tzedaka v'chesed Asei Imanu Tzedaka v'chesed V'hoshienu Yadadaim nadadababayay Whoa Yadadaim nadadabayay Yo Yadadaim nadadabayay Yadai yadadadadai Yadai yai Yo yai ho Yadai yai yo Yadai yo God is other and beyond and transcendent and in charge and in control and a greater power than we can possibly fathom. And at the same time, one could say and be supported by Jewish texts that there's really no distinction between any one of us and God. God is the creator of the universe, the sovereign, the hierarchical ruler, the one to whom we pledge fealty and loyalty. We are nothing in the presence of God. And you could equally say, through foundational Jewish ideas, that God is nothing without us, that God resides in every human being. There's no place, no matter how small or dark or modest, in which God's presence cannot be felt, and that hierarchy is anathema to religious life. Both are true in our tradition. It's a great ideological debate between the schools of Rabbi Ishmael and Rabbi Akiva in the Talmudic times. It's the subject of Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel's probably most important book, even though it's his least well-known book, because it's the only book that was written in Hebrew and only recently translated into English, called Torah Minha, which was a wonderful pun as a title, because Torah Minha means the Torah from heaven, suggesting a divine authorship of Torah. But it was also a way of saying Min HaShamayim. If you say something as Min HaShamayim, you're saying it's heavenly, it's amazing, it's gewaltic, it's exquisite. And the Torah is that no matter where it came from. And in that book, he explores Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Ishmael's understandings of God as either transcendent, beyond incomprehensibly immense, and present, and intimate, and imminent, and the one by our sides at all times. Most of the liturgy of the high holidays is the former. Avinu Malkeinu, our parent, our king, the one who's judging us, the one sealing us, we hope and pray, in the book of life, the one with endless demands upon us. We thought as Yom Kippur waned, we'd spend an hour or so singing out and studying out the God of anti-hierarchy, the God of mirroring, the God who is as loud or soft, or giant or minuscule, or humble or proud as we are. God as a reflection of each one of us. Ya na 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 yo yo. Ya na 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 yo. Ya na 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 yo. Ya na 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 na. Na 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 yo.
Song number 2 on your song sheet. Ki anu amecha ve'ata Eloheinu.
Anu vanecha ve'ata avinu.
Anu avadecha ve'ata
Adonenu. Anu kehalecha ve'ata chelkeinu. Anu nachlatecha ve'ata goraleinu. Anu Sonnecha ve'ata roeinu. Anu charmecha ve'ata notereinu. Anu feulatecha ve'ata yotzereinu. Anu urayatecha ve'ata dodeinu. Anu segulatecha ve'ata kerobeinu. Anu amecha ve'ata malkeinu. Anu mamirecha ve'ata mamireinu.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us here for Hama'alot. We're almost at the end here, and we've been talking and conversing. We've been making our way through our tefillah. We came together here and outside last night to release ourselves from vows. We've been in communication. We've been talking. We've been figuring out how to communicate and with whom to communicate. And as Rabbi Kligfeld said, we're here in this moment trying to figure out how to communicate from a place of mutuality, from a place of mirroring, from a place of knowing where the other person is at and them knowing where we're at. And the song that we just sang, the prayer that we just sang, is a prayer that we only sing on Yom Kippur, and it's sort of this definition of hierarchy, this definition of an imbalanced relationship for the most part, right? We are your people, you are our God. We are your flock, you are our shepherd. We are your children, you are our parent. Over and over again, very imbalanced relationship. And then it ends with this fascinating line at the very end, Anu ma'amirecha ve'ata ma'amirenu, which if you look in our translation says, we are the ones you address, and you are the one to whom we speak, which is a fanciful translation. But the word ma'amirecha and ma'amirenu is the same word. So really it should either be we are the ones you address, and you are the one we address, or we are the ones you speak, and you are the ones whom we speak to. It's the same. We're doing the same action. And by translating it differently, we do disservice to what this prayer is saying at the end. It's saying that we had an imbalance in relationship, but what really matters at the end is that we see each other as equals, that we are looking at each other and we see ourselves in the mirror. When we have a conversation, you look somebody in the eye and you talk to them. That's how they know that you're being honest with them. That's how they know that you're connecting with them. When you are listening to somebody in a conversation, you look them in the eye and you listen to the words that they're saying. You don't come up with your response. If you're trying to think of what you're going to say next, you're not listening to what that person is trying to say. And so that's what this prayer says at the very end. It says that we're supposed to be paying attention. We're supposed to speak, and then we're supposed to listen. We're supposed to figure out a way to understand what is being spoken to us. And that idea, I think, is one that we should hold on to towards the end of Yom Kippur when we're really trying to think about our last debates, our last things that we're going to say on the floor at the courtroom, right in front of the judge. And again, a real imbalance in our relationship when we're talking in front of a judge. But the idea here of what we're saying is that we should just be honest, and we should just be our true selves, and we should understand that the listener to our speech is one who knows us so deeply and so truly because they know all of our secrets. They know us for who we truly are. They mirror us. Ma'amirecha is also, ma'amar is an announcement. It's an affirmation. So when we speak, we are affirming God. And when God speaks back, it affirms us. Each one of us for our own existence. Each one of us written back in. So we're going to sing prayer number 3 on our song sheet here, which is a prayer of love and of adoration. It's a prayer that says that I can't live without you. It says I am weaving these sweet songs. I'm trying to sing. I'm trying to bear my soul to you. And when I sing out, I realize that my soul has actually been resting in the palm of your hand the whole time. Nafshi chamda b'tzel yadecha, lada'at kol raz sodecha. My soul lies in the shade of your palm, knowing all of your deep, deep secrets. It's a palm reading, if you will, right? We're looking quite deeply, and we're feeling a touch of connection. So what would it feel like in this particular moment, and as we make our way towards the rest of our Hama'alot service and the rest of Ne'ilah, to imagine that we are being spoken to, and we are speaking to someone, and we are holding hands at the same moment. We're holding on to each other, we're connecting, we are mirroring, we are affirming. Ay, 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 ay,
Shirim Ero, Ki Elecha Nafshi Tarok, Nafshi Chamda B'tzel Yadecha, Adat Korah Sodecha. Shirim Ero, Ki Elecha Nafshi Tarok, Nafshi Amda B'tzel Yadecha, Ladat Korah Sodecha, Anim Zemiro. Shirim Ero, Ki Elecha, Ki Elecha.
Shitaro.
Yain, yain, yain.
Yo, yain, 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 oh, yain, yain, yo, yain, yain, da da do. Yain, yain, yo. Yain, yain, oh. Anu mamirecha oyata mamireinu anu mamirecha Mayata Mamireinu.
The alternate Torah reading for Yom Kippur and Mincha is taken from chapter 19 of Vayikra, chapter 19 of Leviticus. And one of the ways that it is sometimes referred to is as the Holiness Code. And towards the beginning of the chapter, it says, Kedoshim tihiyu, ki kadosh ani Adonai Elohechem. You shall be holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy. And there are many ways in which we are told as Jews that we bring holiness into the world because of how we emulate God. That just as God comforts the sick, so too should we comfort the sick. Just as God helps to bury the dead, so too should we help to bury the dead, right? That there are ways in which we learn from how God is in the world for how we should be in the world, and that is how holiness becomes manifest. And to continue with this theme of mutuality, there are plenty of rabbinic texts as well that speak to and highlight the fact that this relationship can go both ways. After all, what is a king without subjects to rule? A father isn't a father without children. So it makes sense that there are ways in which we, as people in the world, make it possible for holiness to manifest, and that is the true way in which God's presence emerges. One of the texts that speaks to this is a saying from Reb Simcha Zissel Ziv of Kelm, and it's seasonally fitting. And he said, all of the Rosh Hashanah prayers are designed to glorify the kingdom of heaven, and we, for our part, are called upon to crown God as King of Kings. With what shall we crown God? With love for others and tzedakah. It is only after taking those actions that God truly becomes God. And so it is only through our actions that holiness actually manifests in the world. Our tradition has any number of ways in which we can create holiness in the world. And what we're collectively in this circle going to do now is we're going to speak to a couple of them out of chapter 19 of Leviticus.
When you feel it's ready. Yeah.
In a little bit, we have Historically, we've handed out bracelets to you. We're doing it DIY style in 5784 in Yom Kippur Hama'alot. We're going to hand out these little bracelet kits in a few minutes. And each type of bead that you can put on the bracelet symbolizes one of the mitzvot that we are speaking to now, to highlight or to focus on or to commit to, as a way in which you will bring more holiness into the world this year, right? So we're going to talk about a couple of mitzvot. Each one of them is connected to a type of bead. You can make that bracelet in a few moments, and that will be your reminder for the ways in which you can bring holiness into the world this year. Yeah?
Before you go to Tochacha, I think. Are you going to go to Tochacha now? Yeah. Okay.
So we're going to hand them out now.
If I could have maybe, that is going to help.
What do we say?
It might sound counterintuitive, but one of the ways in which we can crown God and bring greater glory into the world is through criticism, is through being honestly critical of someone we care about. It's hard. It's hard to be honest with people that we love. In some ways, it feels easier to be honest with people we don't know all that well. And with people who we care about, there can be the temptation to say, you know, I'm just going to let this slide. I don't really need to speak about this. I can just let this go. I don't really want to get into it. It doesn't really matter. I don't want to stir the pot. But our tradition tells us, I'm going to read it in the Hebrew because as we're getting into a bit today, the translation kind of smooths things out as it often does. But chapter 19, verse 16, it says, Lo tisna et achicha bilvavecha, hocheach tochiach et amitecha, velo tisa alav chet. The way that that's translated out, that you'll often see, it says, you shall not hate your kinsfolk in your heart, reprove your kinsman, but incur no guilt because of him. And like many translations, I would say that's close, but it doesn't really get at what's happening here. It's interesting that the verse says, you shall not hate your brother in your heart. Don't hold on to hate. Don't hold on to that toxicity. Don't let that fester. You can't hold on to that negativity. So what does that mean you should do? Talk to him. Find a way to bring out that thing that's stewing inside you and find some way to share it, hopefully in a way that can be heard. And it's interesting to note that that verb is repeated. It doesn't just say hocheach. It doesn't just say tochiach. It says hocheach, tochiach. And the commentators pick up that this recognizes you might have to do it more than once. And if you do that, then lo tisa alav chet. If you find a way, when you find a way to tell somebody that you care about what you need to tell them, you're less likely to be drawn down into the muck. I've heard resentment described as taking poison and expecting someone else to die, right? We carry around negativity and we have to find a way to get it out, and it can't be in a way that is shaming the other person. Rashi goes out of his way to say you shouldn't embarrass him. That's not tochecha. Tochecha isn't just unloading on the other person a la Frank Costanza at Festivus. That's not what this is about. This is about finding a way to speak honestly to a person who you love, but not in a way that backs away from what you really need to share. Rabbi Yossi ben Chanina said, a love without tochecha is not love. And Reish Lakish said, tochecha leads to peace. And I would say that we need to go back to the Hebrew to understand that, because peace in Hebrew, of course, is shalom. And shalom is related, of course, to that word shleimut, to wholeness. Tochecha can lead to wholeness within ourselves and in the relationships that we have with the people that we dearly love. It's a fine line between just scolding people and being honest, and it's a fine line between letting things go and also finding a way to get to that right moment when it can really be heard. And the Torah is telling us you have to find a way. You have to find a way to do it. And we can, and we will. And so if this is something that's speaking to you, as you craft your bracelet, the wooden beads are for tochecha, because it might be something that you have to hack away at a little bit with some rough edges, and yet ultimately through that, it's possible to create something really beautiful.
We'll have some time to create the bracelets after we go through the 5 mitzvot. We're going to go on and describe the 5 mitzvot and the beads that are connected to them. But you have your bags, but we'll actually create the bracelets after we go through each of the 5 mitzvot.
Hayanu Mamirecha Ve'ata Mamireinu Hayanu Mamirecha
The second mitzvah is peah. It might sound like a familiar word to you because it's from the same root as peot, or payas, as we might call them, where people are refraining from shaving a certain part of their hair. But pe'ah in this holiness code is speaking of a way of sustaining community, a way of keeping the corners of your field from being yours, but rather allowing them to be for anyone else. And sometimes what we need to do in order to sustain others is just give of something that we could take for ourselves, but leave it for someone else. Because in an abundance, or living in abundance, we don't need everything we have. We don't need to be collecting all of the crops in our proverbial field. But if we leave them for those who might need, we could save someone's life. We could provide someone with a meal that they might not know where it is coming from. So I chose this mitzvah for a very practical reason, which is to share that this community is doing this right now. Downstairs on the first floor, we have a chesed fridge, and this fridge is full of leftovers for anybody who is hungry, anybody who is food insecure, leftovers from your home that you don't need, that you could find another meal somewhere else, and so you're able to bring them here. And someone who is in this community who is food insecure, or someone who is in this community who passes someone who is food insecure on their way home, can now provide someone who is hungry with a meal. So in sustaining community, both within Beth Am and outside, sometimes we just have to stop collecting. Sometimes we have to stop gathering so much that it takes away from others. And sometimes we just have to let things grow and let things go.
Anu Mamirecha Ve'ata Mamireinu Lo Anu Mamirecha Ve'ata Mamireinu.
My mitzvah is Shabbat. Oh, yes, Shabbat. That's such an easy one. Oh, man, Shabbat. That's such a hard one. In the Parsha, it says, Ved Shabtotai Tishmoru. And you should observe my Shabbats in the plural. Our Hasidic masters say that if every single person, every single Jew observes 2 Shabbatot, then the Mashiach would come. And Rabbi Shapiro would be happy. We all would be happy because, yeah, but the idea is that if we're able to do this even just 2 times in a row, then this really great thing would happen. It's about habit. It's about doing something not just once, but trying to make something that you do often, trying to make this something that you take on. And that's the whole idea of what we're doing with these bracelets. It's saying that this is going to be something that you're not just going to try once, but something that we're going to try and take on and try and do and try and experience. And Shabbat is one of those mitzvot that has so many ways in which we can observe it. And it's also one of these mitzvot that we actually observed the first time, or we actually saw God do this thing and then we do it. Or we didn't see God leave things in the field. God doesn't have a field. We didn't see God revering parents. God doesn't have parents. We see God observe Shabbat. And it's actually the first thing that we see God do that's different from the one thing we thought God did before. What I mean is that the Torah starts with God creating. So one might think that that's all God does is create. Create and create and create. Lots of creating, lots of dividing things that God has already created and then creating more things. The first new thing that we see God do is not do anything at all. God stops creating. God rests. And we realize that we also can rest. That we also can do other things besides the things that we thought we could do before. That's what Shabbat is. It's the greatest gift that God gave to the Jewish people. It's the greatest gift that the Jewish people gave to the world. The idea that we could take a pause, that we could take a rest. The idea of the weekend is just based on Shabbat, right? The first weekend was just Shabbat. Not the band, The Weekend, the concept of the weekend. And so what we're saying here is if we can try and do this more than once, if we can take this on at Shabtotai and make a habit of it, it's good for us, it's good for our souls, it's good for our communities, it's good for the world. So what we have here is assorted pastel shapes. That's the beads that are connected to Shabbat.
Think of Lucky Charms.
Think of Lucky Charms,
Charms.
yes. And the idea is that Shabbat takes a lot of different forms, right? Maybe Shabbat is coming to shul. Maybe Shabbat is celebrating with your family. Maybe Shabbat is saying a bracha over the wine and a bracha over the bread before you eat. Maybe Shabbat is singing. Maybe Shabbat is prayer. Maybe Shabbat is silence. Maybe Shabbat is rest. Whatever it is, take some pastels and put them onto your bracelet and take more than one. Try on a different way to do Shabbat more than once and then stick to it. Don't just do it once, but do it again and then try and do some other thing related to Shabbat. Shabbat looks like a lot of different things. And when we rest, when we celebrate, when we come together, when we come to this place and we sing, when we pray, when we eat together in community, that's celebrating Shabbat. And the more we can do that, the more we can build a beautiful world, the more we can make a place that the Mashiach would want to reside in. Oh, anu ma'amirecha ve'ata
Mamireinu. Anu Mamirecha. Ve'ata Mamireinu.
So we've been talking a lot about this mutual, equal relationship now for about 45 minutes. And I just want to say that no relationship is really equal, even between friends or colleagues. And power dynamics change in relationships over time. One person may hold sway over the other, and next week it can completely flip. So while we've been focusing on mutuality and reciprocity in our relationship with God and how we can help God be holy and in turn be holy ourselves, I want to name that relationships are usually not equal. In this passage of Torah that we are focusing on right now, the very first mitzvah that the Torah gives us as an example of how to be holy because God is holy is to revere your mother and your father. Note that not honor, kibud, which is the word in the Ten Commandments, is used here, but revere, yirah, is the word that's used. Your relationship with your parents is by definition not equal, but it is also not one of domination. The power dynamic between parents and children changes dramatically over the life of the child. From complete domination in infancy to the child finding independence and testing boundaries in both toddlerhood and adolescence. I'm going with both of those right now. I'm living through both of those right now. To then often a complete shift in power once the child hopefully cares for the parent in their old age. This ever-changing dynamic is actually a way to play with our relationship with the divine. Sometimes we may feel like God is all-powerful, and sometimes we may feel the opposite. Sometimes we may feel those power dynamics changing and be totally comfortable with that. And other times it may throw us back on our heels. Similar to how we have to make adjustments in our relationships with our parents over time. But regardless of how those dynamics change, we should still revere those who gave us life, taught us how to walk through the world, and gave us the tools to be the people we are today. Again, I want to note that this mitzvah in Leviticus says to revere, yirah, not to honor, kibud. This is a mitzvah that can be done for both living parents and those who are no longer with us. It can be done in action and in word, through stories and in our hearts. It can also be done for parental figures in our lives, those who may not be the ones who bore us, but for those who are parent-like in our lives and who touch our hearts in the ways that may feel like parents. So fittingly, the beads we have chosen as a visual reminder for this mitzvah are the hearts that you will find in your bags. If you would like to focus on this mitzvah this year and would like to create a visual reminder, you may choose the heart beads when you create your bracelet. Or I also will point out that they're very long, so they might end up being a necklace. So I'm just putting it out there that it could be a necklace for you, it might be a bracelet. You'll have the choice when you're creating them.
Hayanu mamirecha ve'ata
Mamireinu.
Hayanu mamirecha ve'ata mamireinu.
For this last mitzvah that we're going to highlight, this is a little bit of payoff for people who are here early this morning for our Hama'alot gathering, our Pesukei de Zimra harmony-filled, rich gathering, and now are making it kind of full circle today to this moment. Also meaning making, even if you weren't there. But it's a little extra gift if you were there this morning as well. This morning I spoke a little bit more in depth than I will now about the idea that God's name changes during the 10 days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. God changes God's name, and we change God's name in our liturgy to HaMelech HaMishpat. God who is, according to the Rambam, the sovereign whose name becomes synonymous with the action and the value of carrying out justice. And that's a change from the liturgy as we usually have it, and the liturgy will return to in, I'm not counting the minutes, but just a matter of, let's say, minutes. Usually we say that God is Melech Ohev Tzedakah Umishpat, the God who is the lover of Tzedakah Umishpat, seeing charitableness carried out in the world. Umishpat, and also judgment. In the Holiness Code, what we're given, a little piska, a little piece of the end of the 15th verse in the code, we're told, B'tzedek tishpot amitecha. In righteousness, you should judge your fellow person. So what is it that we're doing when we're judging our fellow human being in righteousness? We're trying our very, very best. And I'm committing myself, if I can get this blue bead to stay on the bracelet this year. I was trying to do it as an example to hold up. I'm going to strive this year to be the kind of person whose name becomes this much more, 1 degree more synonymous with carrying out justice, and that starts by being that much more fair with the people who are around me. It doesn't have to be that I make sure that justice is carried out in our court system, though I know there are people in our community who see to that every day. It doesn't have to be that I write letters to the people who have the highest power and authority to the world. It doesn't even mean that I have to pray perfectly for justice to be carried out in the world every single day. But it does mean tzedek, in righteousness. I should judge my fellow person. And according to the rest of that verse, it means that I should judge people equitably. That I shouldn't judge people differently based on the kind of resources that they bring to the table or the conversation, based on the kind of judgment that I brought to the table or the conversation. That is the tzedek and mishpat I want to bring to the world, and to strive to bring out in the rest of the days of the year, the other 355. I didn't count out the Jewish calendar, but the others, then the 10, that we spend calling God Hamelech HaMishpat. To make my name as a human being just a little bit more B'Tselem Elohim, in the image of the divine, synonymous with carrying out a value in action, with seeing justice carried out in the world, with a little more kindness to the people who I know and the people whom I meet every day. And this is represented by a tiny little blue bead.
Be'ata mamireinu, Adonu mamirecha, Be'at mamireinu.
If you haven't already opened your bags, as you can see, my clergy colleagues here could not help themselves. Now is the time we're
It's so easy for us too. Easy time up.
Yes. So I will say that the blue bead for judging others fairly is challenging to get on the string, but the rest are stringing very nicely. There is a holiness code on your song sheet that shows you which beads go with which mitzvot. So here we have these visual reminders. If some of these mitzvot spoke to you as what you want to include on your mitzvot reminder bracelet / necklace that you would like as a visual reminder for the year and how to bring more holiness into the world this year. Let's take some time now to choose your beads. Again, the wooden beads, there's 4 different colors of wooden beads. For tochacha, sharing honest criticism. The green beads were for sustaining community, for pe'ah. The different pastel shapes were for observing Shabbat. The hearts were for revering your parents, and the blue world beads, if you can get it onto the string. Twist the. You can put it in your mouth and twist the string. For judging others fairly, and hopefully you can make a necklace or a bracelet that will speak to you personally about how you want to walk through the world in a more holy way this year.
To go from the holy to the mundane for just 1 second, because I've had this question now around this table. The way that you are to fasten the bracelets, because it is a chag and we're not asking you to use pliers or make knots or anything like that. There's one spring at the end that is not attached to anything. You're going to put the black string through that spring, and then you're just going to pull it through so that it can remain together until you get home and choose to either use pliers to close that spring tightly or to knot it. But you can put it back in the bag to make it into a bracelet. And if anybody needs help, Wanda is here, or I can help you.
As you are working on your bracelets, I am brought back to arts and crafts at Camp and feeling again that I'm the worst at it.
You did great.
Never liked Amanut. All the other kids were figuring it out, and I was still on step 1. And all of a sudden, the session was over. It's time for Hebrew class again. We've spoken about how many parts of our liturgy can represent simultaneously the ways in which God is more other than other can be, and more a part of us at the same time. Every single Jewish prayer service, whether a quiet Amidah or a full Kaddish, ends with the phrase, the sentence that has been turned into so many different pieces of music, Oseh Shalom B'Romav. And in those words that I have not thought about in detail in a long time, you have the same double possibility, the same paradox. Oseh Shalom B'Romav, describing God who is the one who makes Oseh, Shalom, peace, B'Romav, in God's heavens. Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu. May that God be the one who makes shalom upon us. On the one hand, you can say, only God who makes peace in God's upper realms has the power to even possibly really make peace down here on earth. And so you can sing it in such a way that this is the God who is transcendent and beyond. Or you can say it, Oseh Shalom B'Romav, just as God makes peace up in the heavens, Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu, come down here too. Come make peace with us. Come make peace through us. We become your peacemakers, God. We are your mirror on earth. We are your only representation on earth. We are the mitzvah makers. We are the critique givers. We're the ones leaving corners to those who have less than us. The ones who find a way to pause once a week. The one who reveres our parents. The one who tries to judge favorably down here, mirroring a divine sort of justice. Come down with us and make peace. And in those moments, we and God become one. So as you sing Oseh Shalom, you can think of one paradigm of God as the most distant force on the planet. Or you can think of God as the other paradigm, the most close in power that you can sense. Or maybe a little bit of both as we get close to the end of this day and march through this year as God's army, bringing mitzvah and goodness and light and love to the world.
Amen.
Oseh Shalom, Shalom B'Romav, Hu Yaseh Shalom, Oseh Shalom, Shalom B'Romav, Hu Yaseh Shalom, Hu Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael, Ve'yemeru Amen. Oseh Shalom, Shalom B'Romav, Hu Yaseh Shalom, Oseh Shalom, Shalom B'Romav, Hu Yaseh Shalom, Hu Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu.
I be'al kol Yisrael ve'yemeru ameno se shalom shalom bimroma yase shalom se shalom shalom bimroma yase shalom yase shalom shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'yemeru amen.
Open up the gates for us, God. The gates have nearly opened. We're going to turn in just a moment to Mourner's Kaddish. Following Mourner's Kaddish, we'll turn to the song B'tach Lanu Shar. There are two Ne'ilah services that follow, one on the field, clergy-led, and follow all of us out there. Will lead the way. The other is taking place in the gym, led by Library Minyan. First, Mourner's Kaddish, page
26.
Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah. V'yama divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei. V'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael. V'agala uv'izman kariv ve'imru amen. Yesh Rabbah mevarach le'lamo amei omaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yithalal shemei dekudesha berichu. Le'ela le'ela mikol birchata v'shirata. Tushbachata v'nechamata damiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Hosei shalom bimromav hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Itach lanu shar, petach lanu shar, petach lanu shar, petach lanu shar. Shar niftach, shar niftach, shar niftach, petach lanu shar, petach lanu shar, petach lanu shar, petach lanu shar. Shar niftach, shar niftach, shar niftach, petach lanu shar, petach lanu shar, petach lanu shar, petach
shar, shar,